Welcome to the Unstoppable Recording Machine Podcast, brought to you by Balaguer Guitars. Founded in 2014, Balaguer Guitars strives to bring modern aesthetics and options to vintage-inspired designs. Go to BalaguerGuitars.com for more info. This episode of the podcast is also brought to you by Fishman, Inspired Performance Technology. Fishman is dedicated to helping musicians of all styles achieve the truest sound possible, wherever and whenever they plug in. Go to Fishman.com for more info. And now your host, Joel Wanasek.
Hey everybody, how you doing? I am Joel Wanasek, and you are listening to the Unstoppable Recording Machine Podcast, the hardest hitting, most extreme, exciting, and brutal hour of audio podcast on the internet, anywhere, anytime, anyplace. Well, maybe not, I don't know, but that sounded like a pretty cool intro, so I said it anyways. So this is a solo episode. If this is your first time, hopefully it's your best time, but if you want to submit questions, it's joel@urm.academy. That is joel@urm.academy. Hit me up with the subject line, Dear Joel, and I will do my best to answer your questions, go on epic rants, and give brutal, ridiculous answers that hopefully not only entertain you, but are somewhat information of I can't even speak English today. Somewhat useful and full of insight. So, not editing that one out. So let's do it. All right. So a couple things I want to talk about tonight before we get started and get into your questions. I want to talk about Nashville. So I was just in Nashville a couple weeks ago with Billy Decker. Now it sucks for me because all my guys, Joey and AL, they get to travel every month and go and hang out and do all this stuff. And, I'm a married dude. So I got to stay home with my family and be a dad and all that crap. And I kind of want to get on the plane and go have fun and hang out and do cool stuff too. But it doesn't get to happen very often. So I finally got to go out last weekend. I went to Nashville and we had an awesome time. And we did something really cool there that was really exciting. We've been doing these meetups, right? So people come in from Unstoppable Recording Machine, and there's meetups happening all over the world. All the major cities, it's crazy how many places we have where people have physically done a meetup here. And I've been to one, and I think maybe AL has been to one, and maybe Joey's been to one in person, but we've never all been in the same city at the same time and at the same place. So we had one in Nashville, and a whole bunch of people came out, and it was insane. Even Billy Decker came out and hung out, and it was so cool of him because, Billy's a busy guy and such a badass mixer and just inspirational dude to be around. Absolutely top of the game, top tier, cream of the crop dude, just amazing human being. Love him to death. And I'll tell you guys, Billy came out, we were all there, and to see you guys in person and get to interact with you is just absolutely incredible because we sit here, we do this every month. We get on the mic, we talk about audio and nerd stuff, and we hang out and have a good time. And, we see all the stuff going on, the Unstoppable Recording Machine Private Producers chats and the Private Producers Club on Facebook. And, we're interacting, we see your stories, and it's really inspiring and awesome. But when you get to sit down and hang out with people face to face and say, hey, man, what's going on in your life? What are you working with? What are you struggling with? What are you doing? And to see such a group of motivated guys just hustling, grinding, working hard, living the dream. It's so inspiring to be around and so awesome to interact with you guys. And I think we're going to start a precedent now where we're going to be doing these meetups every time we do a Nail the Mix. So if we're coming to a Nail the Mix city and you're in town and we're in your city, you should come out to a meetup because we'd love to hang out, maybe drink a beer. If you don't drink, that's fine. We can, just hang out, chat shit, have a good time, and rock and roll. So, man, I just want to say URM, Nashville, you guys were awesome. Billy Decker month was incredible. One of my favorites. Billy is one of the swellest, coolest dudes. And, man, his drums are metal as hell, and he mixes country hits. So I love it. It's so cool, man. So came back from Nashville, just totally jacked, totally inspired, totally ready to go. So I just can't wait to do more of these things. I think this month we're in LA with a Bo Burcheld, and we're doing Seosin. And next month, I'm not going to give it away, but if you guys are subscribers, you know who we've got. We've got a really sick and really popular metal band on and a really badass mixer. So regardless, all right, let's dig into the stuff. One more thing I want to talk about real quick is that we finally have Unstoppable Recording Machine merchandise. So if you go to unstoppablemerch.com, you yourself can get a No Small Time t-shirt. And I'll tell you what, if you wear a No Small Time t-shirt to our URM meetup and I'm there, I'm going to give you something special. So don't be small time. Get the only shirt that tells the world that you're not small time. And, I'm getting one myself, so we can be dorks together. So first and foremost, I want to start out today before I start answering questions. Boy, I just keep going, man. Like it's just endless, right? You can't stop. So first and foremost, I want to talk about a little bit of a rant here because something happened to me a few days ago that really kind of like shook me and it made me think and reflect deep. And I've talked about this before because you guys know I'm kind of a health nut and, I try to live a healthy lifestyle overall. And, sometimes like now I don't get any sleep because I'm going on vacation, but I try to balance and I try to eat a really good diet and eat a lot of good variety of foods. And, I don't do soda or anything like that. I try to eat a large variety of healthy foods and, stay away from stuff that's bad and live a reasonably healthy lifestyle, be active as much as possible, which is pretty hard in this business. So something happened to me, somebody close to me. I'm not going to say who because it doesn't matter here because we're talking public and I don't like mixing private and public. But let's just say somebody I know really well and I definitely care a lot about. They came down with a type of cancer, right? So something. Again, it doesn't matter the type. I think everything's going to be fine with them and it's healable, but it really kind of like I sat down and I thought about it and I thought about the person's age and health history and just, genetics and all that. And I was just like, holy shit, it really kind of hit home to me. And because again, it's somebody I know really well and I definitely care about. It was kind of a shock and it made me think about health and it made me think about the sedentary lifestyle that we live as audio people that are in the music, even if you're playing in a band, sitting around on the tour bus all day, waiting for the show, you get your half hour or to two, maybe 2 hours if you're in a huge band of exercise at night. And then the rest of the time you're standing there signing autographs or, hanging out in the back, sitting in a chair. So all day we're sitting. The human body is not designed to sit, which is very hard to do when you work in this industry, especially if you're behind the glass, making records, living records, working ridiculous hours. It's really hard. Going to the gym for a half hour or an hour a day does not offset the damage you are doing to your body, your skeletal structure, your muscle systems, your posture, your entire health of your entire organism. So it's very important to space up your day and break it up and get out and do stuff that's good for you, that's healthy for you. Because, lots of talk about healthcare and health insurance right now in the United States. And I don't want to, I don't do politics, period. We're just not going to discuss it because it's no matter what you say or believe, it doesn't matter. It's bad for somebody and it's good for somebody else. You know what I mean? Like, so it's a no-go. We don't talk about it. But one thing I will say is that I think about health and I think, okay, I'm in my 30s and if I live a healthy lifestyle now, hopefully that will pay massive dividends when I'm 60 or 70 or 80 or, if I get that old. And I'll be really stoked that I did. And I'm lucky because my wife is somebody that's a health nut and she knows more about it than most doctors I've ever met in my life. I mean, dead serious. She doesn't have the MD, but all day long podcasts, books, she's just into it. It's her thing. And I've learned a lot from her. And we've read a lot of stuff and it's just been like a common shared interest. And I feel like I've been living a pretty decently healthy lifestyle for many years, minus sitting in the damn office all day, grinding ridiculous hours, running multiple businesses, being a crazy person, mixing songs, just being ambitious. You know what I mean? Now, the eustress part of that I think is good because you're always jacked, you're doing what you love, you're always in a good mood, you're excited. But on the same side, there's the whole sedentary thing where you're sitting down all day in a chair and the body is not designed to do that. And there's nothing you can do to combat it other than try to be active multiple times during the day. So it's important to be cognizant of that because guys, time spent now investing in your health, meaning eating good quality foods. For example, before I got on the show, I went and I grabbed a nice bottle of juice from the organic store that opened literally a block from my studio and a block from my house. It's like right in between. So it's like the perfect location. I totally lugged out. I went and got some stuff and every day, I go now and try to get like a nice healthy lunch and breakfast and stuff like that. So it's important to eat really healthy and really good foods because you're going to have a lot more sustained energy. You're going to be able to act and perform at your peak, which is really important when you're doing a creative job because you need to be able to be creative at 2 a.m, just as good as you are at 7 a.m. after you have a nice full night of sleep or as much as 2 p.m. or any other time of the day. And if you can't have that energy and you're not eating good foods and not getting rest and not getting some exercise, you're not going to have that energy. You're not going to be jacked. You're not going to be ready to go. You're not going to be on, you're not going to be primed. You're not going to be creative. You're not going to be inspirational to be around. And who wants to be all those knots? That shit's small time. We're not interested in small time. The no small time attitude is we really want to come in and we want to kill it at everything we do. We want to be always full of energy, always full of life, always performing at our peak, being the best that we can be, always pushing ourselves, getting that nice positive stress going in our life, being really excited and passionate about what we're doing, because the people that are working with us, our clients, they're going to feel that energy. They're going to feed off it. It's going to come in. It's going to be part of their performance. They're going to get that vibe from you, and they're going to be like, I like being around that dude. That guy, he's got that spark. There's something about him. And, they feed off that, and you get that creativity and that, that ebb and flow. And that's so important when you're working with a client or, working in the studio or doing anything creative, having that vibe and that chemistry and, just being a positive, upbeat person is important. And the only way you can be that person is if you're feeding the machine necessary. If you're not eating good foods and you're sitting around, you're not getting any sunlight and vitamin D, and you're not doing any exercise, you're going to be sitting there depressed, and you're going to be tired and melancholic, and you're going to feel like crap, and you're going to be that dude. You know what I mean? You're going to be that person. And it's important to break those habits, because you can control what you do every day. You can decide to go out and exercise. You can take the stairs instead of the elevator like all the lazy asses. You can get up and you can go for a walk for 5 minutes no matter how busy you are, because, hey, if you're creative and you got to sit in a chair for like 16 hours, it's going to help anyways, because think about it, right? So you're sitting there and you're 2 or 3 hours in, you're a little burned, you're a little bit like really focused. Sometimes you get up, you go walk outside, get 10 minutes of air, power walk around this thing, and again, when you're walking, you can make little healthy choices. So you can choose to walk a little bit faster, to push yourself physically. You can choose to, when you're at the grocery store, hustle up and grab stuff and, get through the checkout line instead of kind of loaf around and take your time. You know what I mean? And all that little bit of positive stress in your body, that small amount synergistically builds up, I believe, over your entire life and will pay dividends when you are older. So I just want to say, guys, that experience made me think about my own health and the vulnerability of our bodies and the organism that we are, the human being, that the flesh and blood that we are, and it's just like, guys, we're fragile. If you've ever taken like a combat or a fighting, or anything like that, like MMA or Russian Sistema or Krav Maga or anything like that, like, how fragile the human body is. It's not hard to break people's joints if you know what you're doing. It's not hard to use leverage and force. And it's really crazy how fragile and frail the human body is, no matter how strong, how big you are. So you need to protect your health. It's the most important thing. It does not matter how much success, how much money, how much anything you have in your life. If you are sick and you are really sick, you are sitting there and you feel like shit, there is nothing you want more than to get healthy. I'll equate it like this. Here's the analogy. We've all had a night, well, maybe not all of us, but most of us, maybe not like straight edge people, but most of us have had a night in our life where we've sat down and we have had too much to drink. And you wake up, you puke all night long, you feel sick. And when you're sitting there on the toilet, you think of this podcast right now, the next time this happens. Hopefully it doesn't, but you sit there and you think of this podcast in this moment right now. And I want you to think that, how are you feeling at that moment? The last thing you want to do, you care about, is how much money is in your bank account, or what client you got, or what mix you turned in, or what mix off you won, or, what girl you met, or, whatever. Like, you're focused on one thing. I feel like shit and I need to get better. I feel terrible. I just want to roll up in a ball and die. I just want the pain to end. So the human body is built to avoid pain and suffering. So you know what, guys, you gotta deal. So take care of yourself, because if your health goes wrong, if you have a problem, like I passed a kidney stone once. I remember sitting on that couch for 2 hours, like nonstop, constant pain, just sitting like, this really sucks. And at that moment right there, nothing else that you're doing in your life matters to you. You do not care about anything else other than getting better as fast as possible and making that pain end. So it's important. Take care of yourself so you have less of those moments in your life. We're living that sedentary lifestyle. You got to get off your ass, get out of the studio, get some exercise every day, push it a little bit, work a little bit harder, take the stairs instead of taking the elevator, just little things like that, hustle through the store a little bit faster, run or jog instead of walk somewhere, you know what I mean? Like just find ways to push it and get some, get your cardio up and just get your overall physical conditioning. So I don't know, that's a long rant, but I felt like ranting. So I'm sorry, but it's my show, so I can rant. Haha. All right. So let's start with the questions. And the first one here is a long one. Hey, Joel, I always see you referencing books and podcasts that are more in the nonfiction, business, and personal motivation types, a lot of which I've taken your advice, I've read or listened to. With that being said, do you ever just read books for pleasure, or is there anything besides the business mindset involved? The same goes with other aspects of your life, being a dad, husband. I know you said things about taking time to travel, but is there anything on a daily basis that you do? Also, when it comes to being creative, where do you find inspiration? Movies, non-business books, long walks in Wisconsin. I don't know about long walks, but brisk walks. With how busy you guys are and how disciplined it must be, it must be to run a business. It doesn't have to leave. Okay, I see what he's trying to say. Okay, must be difficult to run a business because it doesn't leave much free time for anything else. Really love what you guys are doing. Long time Nail the Nick subscriber. Learned so much, and thank you, Matthew. All right, Matthew. Well, I'll start off at the top here and we'll work down your questions. So first and foremost, do I ever read books for pleasure, or is there always a business mindset involved? Well, I'm going to be honest. What if I told you that I read only business books that have, a mindset or a motive or a goal, but I find a lot of pleasure in doing it, which is maybe sadistic, maybe weird, maybe it's like a mental disorder or something, but I love business. I love the excitement of it. I love the hustle of it, the competition of it, the changing, the challenge. It's so exciting and so inspiring. And so I love reading about it and learning about it. And anytime I'm learning anything, I'm stoked. Like it just gets me totally jacked up. So I try to listen and read a lot of things that are positive, things that are going to get me fired up, and things that are going to make me feel good, because it's like getting that like mindset. If I want to talk to guys that have that mindset, like I can't just go down the street and go to the bar, or I can't call up a friend or whatever. I have to call my business partners and I have to be like, yo, Joey, yo, what's up, man? And like, we just get fired up and we're just totally stoked, So it's like, I don't have a lot of people that I can call and talk about things that I'm really passionate and interested in. So it's nice to have some really good friends like those guys that not only do I work with every day, but that's it. So I will say, the stuff I read usually has an objective and a goal, but I love reading it and it's fascinating to me. So it's for pleasure. And I've been trying to explain this to my wife. She's like, why don't you read something practical, or why don't you read something that's like, a story or something? And I'm just like, well, I could, but I have so much to learn and so many things I don't know. And I need to know about this. And this is so interesting to me. And this is interesting. So, I try to read things that help me grow, because like I said, when I'm growing, I'm getting pleasure out of it, if that makes sense. So hopefully that helps. I know some things aren't that interesting, but when it comes down to survival, like, hey, I got to understand my tax situation because I'm getting crushed on taxes, better, then all of a sudden you find this amazing motivation to get really into like tax law when you never knew you had. So you'd be shocked. So, necessity sometimes creates excitement and motivation and pleasure. Okay, so next question part here, Matthew says, the same goes for the other aspects of your life, being a dad and a husband. Okay, like what kind of things do I do on a daily basis, to do that? Okay, so I think what he means is, okay, so a big thing for me with having a family or, any type of significant other. So if you guys have like a girlfriend, or if you're a female, if you have a boyfriend, or, like whatever's going on in your life, you got to take some time when you're with those people to be with them. And I know it's hard, like, your phone is bzz, 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 so turn it off. And I've said this many times before, and I violate this all the time, but it's always on the weekends where I'm sitting down and I'm chilling and I turn my phone off and I don't look at it until Sunday night, that I get true relaxation. I feel great, go do something like yard work, or, spend time with your kids, like whatever gets you stoked, friends, just like go do something with people that isn't work, that isn't studio, that isn't recording, and get out and just like experience life, like real life, not like life in the studio. What a concept, right? So I think that when you're doing that sort of thing, like family or whatever, you have to dedicate your full mindset to doing it. And you have to just totally block out all distractions. If you're with your kids, be with your kids. If you're with your business partners, be doing business, So you got to balance. It's really hard, but you definitely have to balance. And I think it's important just as much as to take initiative in business and to take initiative in your career and things like that and your own learning and personal growth as it is to take initiative in your relationships and, try to improve them and make them better. And I think that's out of all the things I do and in my life, I think this is the thing I struggle with the most. I definitely, when you're a parent, you try to be the best parent that you can be, but no matter how hard you try, you're going to have, sometimes you try one tactic and it doesn't work. And then the next day it works and the kids are really sassy one day, then they're really it's just like, it's all over the place and it's an emotional roller coaster. So just, you got to enjoy the process. I think that's the most important thing, Matthew. I think if you sit down and just take it day by day and really take the time to just soak it in and enjoy it while you're doing it. So if you're sitting down on a hill and it's your day off and it's a beautiful day outside and the air is fresh and you're in a great location, sit down and take a couple of deep breaths, and smell the air and look at the sky and enjoy it and take it all in. And don't just be like, all right, where am I going in 10 minutes? I got to go do this. I got to go to that. So learn to slow down. And it's really hard, especially in this lifestyle where everything's a status update or a social media thing, or, you know what I mean? It's a nonstop barrage of sensory input. It's more important than ever to sit down and find that space where you can just turn all that crap off and just be like, this is what's happening now. Right now, I'm podcasting, so I'm enjoying it. I'm living in the moment right now. But as soon as I lay down and go home, I'm going to sit down, lay down in bed, and I'm going to really enjoy laying down and enjoy the feeling of relaxing and sleep. You got to make a conscious effort to really just not go through the motions in life, but sit down and be cognizant and realize what you're doing and why you're doing it. So balance, man. You just got to balance it out. Hard to do, easy to understand. It's one of those things. All right, so the next part of the question is, okay, also when it comes to being creative, where do you find inspiration? Movies, non-business books, long walks, etc. So I get inspiration from, I don't know, this is a kind of a weird topic because I feel like I'm a naturally inspired person. I don't know what it is. I don't know where it comes from. I mean, I think I know, but I'm not fully sure because I don't know. I'm not a psychologist, but I just am excited. I can't explain it. I love what I'm doing. It's actualizing. It's Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It's I'm living at the top of my pyramid every day and I'm enjoying it. So I just get inspired because I'm doing something that I love and it's on a larger scale than when I was just making records. And, I'm still making records and mixing stuff and things like that. But doing all this stuff we're doing at Unstoppable Recording Machine and Drum Forge, it's really cool. When a friend of mine that I really respect and that I've looked up to for many years hits me up and sends me an email randomly and says, dude, I really love this plugin that you sent over. It's really awesome. And I didn't ask him to do his opinion. He just let me know because it's really helping him make better music. And that's amazing. Or going to a meetup and seeing all you guys at URM and just hanging out and seeing what's going on in your lives and seeing how hard you're working and seeing how you're getting through problems and struggles and achieving things and having your victories and setbacks. And I don't know, it's just cool to see things happening, if that makes sense. So I get my inspiration just from life, every day, just live everything to the fullest. And if you feel down, you feel weird, find something that gets you jacked. Okay. So what are things that get me jacked? Well, I love podcasts, again, reading motivational stuff or inspirational stuff, books, things like that. So I love just surrounding myself with some sort of positivity, but, I also like to, when I chill, do things I love to watch movies. So I like to go places like museums and art galleries. So places like art is cool and beautiful. And I like the colors and I like, all the interior design aspects of it and how it, plays with the eye. Or, if I go to the museum, I love history. And, you think about things what was it like when dinosaurs or the Roman Empire or ancient Egypt or, the Persian Empire, battle tactics or, whatever. That stuff is really fascinating fascinating to me, and I love history, and I think it's so cool. So I love going to places that like inspire a sense of wonder and connection with humanity. You know, it's cool to know that, you know, we have this little short lifespan, but so much has happened before us and so much will happen after we're gone. And just to be part of that continuum. So do things that give you a sense of wonder and imagination and inspire you. You know, that's a great place to find inspiration. And that could be anything. I mean, hell, even reading like a National Geographic magazine about, you know, ancient Babylon gets me totally stoked and jacked. And I'm like, man, I want to go do archaeology. So maybe someday I'll go and take a week off and go like help out on a dig or something. You know, like just find something that gets you excited and do more of it. If you're doing a lot of things that get you excited, you're just going to be jacked all the time. And it's like I said, that positivity, it just rubs off on people because, you know, everything is so negative. You turn on the damn TV, it's just straight negativity and bullshit. You open up your feed, everybody's so negative all the time. And it's just like, somebody's got to be positive. So why can't that person be you? Why can't that person be me? You know, there's no reason. Like, we need more positivity in the world. And the world is a very negative place. And it's easy to get upset about a lot of things that happen in the world. But you know what? You can't control everything, but you can control how you feel about it or how you interact with it. And you can control that at least to some degree. So focus on that. Focus on doing what you can do. And I think that you'll feel pretty good doing it. All right, next question. Corey is asking, how do you deal with vocal tuning artifacts when they arrive already edited? For example, on a track I'm mixing this month, I feel like I'm hearing some tuning artifacts throughout the vocal track, so there's no chance to re-edit. How you can handle this so it doesn't distract the listener? Well, Corey, that is quite the problem. If you can't retune something and you can't go to the tracking engineer and say, hey, dude, you screwed this up. Or sometimes the tracking engineer will get back to you and he'll be like, dude, no. If you heard the singer sing, you'd understand. So just, this is the best it's going to be. So there's a couple things you can do. If there's a lot of artifacts and stuff like that, sometimes depending on the syllable length of the part, you may be able to like stretch it or cut out little, you know, things. If you watch Joey's fast track for URM enhanced guys on guitar editing, you'll see how you can like elongate things, and the same things work for vocals. You can like elongate certain syllables and words and sounds that come out of a singer's mouth. So sometimes you can replace that stuff and sometimes you cannot. You got to be careful. It's hard. It's difficult. Yeah, I know. I get it. Another thing you have to realize is loud and proud. Like you and I might hear auto-tune because we're trained professional. I'll tell you, like my mom, when she listens to a pop song and I'm just like auto-tune, she's just like, oh, I love this song. Oh, that voice is great. This is such a great melody. I can't get that song out of my head. I love these lyrics. This is a great song. But, you know, and she doesn't care if there's auto-tune. Either she likes the song or she doesn't. So most people don't care. You got to understand that's a really important distinction. We care because we're trained to care. We're told we need to care. It's cool to care and be like, oh, auto-tune, blah, blah, blah. But reality of the situation is, Corey, dude, seriously, no one cares. I mean, we care, but how many of the people in the world are there that are like us versus the people that listen to the actual music? We're a majority so small in statistics, they would call it statistic insignificance because we're too many standard deviations away from the mean to even matter. So we're like the fringe outlier. I mean, it's just like laughable how many audio engineers there are versus listeners. So you got to understand that you can just go loud and proud, and sometimes you can hide it with like a little bit of effects or something like that. You know, you can always do like a throw or bring up the delay or the reverb or something, or bring up a harmony or whatever. Like a lot of harmonies can really duck bad singing. I was mixing a pop song recently that it was not tuned very well, and the singer was very shaky on the pitch, and thankfully there were like 20 tracks of vocals. So I was just like, when you put it all together, you can't hear that every single one of them is terrible, but as a whole, they sound great. So, just try using some strategies like that. But at the end of the day, dude, just don't beat yourself up because you didn't tune it. You're just mixing it. And most people do not care. All right. Next question. Dear Dark Lord of no small time, there aren't enough hours in the day to get all the things I want to do, I want to get done. So help. How can I be more efficient? Steve. All right, Steve, I got a couple thoughts on this. First and foremost, actually what's funny is you mentioned this because ironically, I was on the phone last night talking to Joey about this for a while. We were kind of laughing because our lives are very similar and very weird compared to how most normal people live their lives. a lot of people, they get off at 5 or 6 o'clock. They come home from work and, they have free time and they just do whatever they do. They go to bed, they go to work, they put in their hours, they're off on the weekends. As for us, every single minute of our lives is calculated, mine especially because I have kids. But so I wake up at a certain time every day, no matter how late I'm up or how tired I am or what I want to do or how I feel about it. I get up at a certain time, I go through the routine, I get them to daycare as fast as I can. I get my butt over the studio. I optimize all my time as much as I can there, and when I'm going to feel non-productive, I'll go do something like get some air or, go to lunch or something and, get out until I get that inspiration back and I'm effective. Go home, pick them up, do that stuff and then either go to sleep or go back to work and grind it out. But more importantly, I take every single opportunity that I have to sit down and optimize whatever I'm doing. Now, don't get this wrong because there's going to be that guy out in the crowd. He's going to be like, oh, well, you got to learn to slow down, man. You got to learn to relax. Like, yeah, okay. I'm talking about optimizing relaxation too. Get it, right? So not only am I optimizing like everything I'm doing from like a business point of view or like, okay, so I'm going to go to the store. I've got 10 minutes down. I'm going to power through this so I can get the health boost, of moving fast and getting the hustle on. But not only that, I'm going to go in and I'm going to throw on the podcast and listen to something really inspirational. So I'm going to learn something. I'm going to get all stoked and jacked about that. And, I'm just going to be totally in the zone and I'm going to get my shopping done. I'm going to go back. And then I'm like, all right, tonight I'm going to watch a movie. So I'll sit down and I'll figure it out and I'll optimize it. So if I'm going to relax, I'm going to relax and I'm going to relax with the most passionate enjoyment of that moment possible. If I'm like, okay, I'm going to get a bunch of stuff done when I'm shopping, then I'm going to get a bunch of stuff done. So you have to you have to audit your life, I guess is what I'm saying. Look at places you can have opportunities. You're going to sit down and be like, all right, I got this much time right here. I could be doing this. I got a 30-minute commute every day. So I'm wasting 60 minutes in the car there and back. So what am I going to do? I'm going to learn something. Am I going to get on the phone and do business deals and have all my meetings and conference calls when I'm driving? How can I make my day more efficient so I can get more stuff done more efficiently and be most importantly, more effective at doing it? Because you can work a lot of hours in a day, but I'll tell you guys, the amount of hours that you work is not important. It's what you do with those hours while you're working. You could work 2 hours in a day and be more productive than somebody that works 16. It's easy. You just got to be really focused. So, it's all about effectiveness. If you're really efficient at being effective, you're a beast. You're killing it. If you're really efficient, you could be really efficient at something that isn't effective and you're effectively, play on words, right? Wasting a ton of time. So think about that. I mean, it's a really, really important distinction. So I would say you want to try to look at your day, Steve, and you want to optimize every minute of it to be moving towards some kind of goal. Like I said, that goal could be relaxation. That goal could be spend time with family or a significant other. That goal could be like, all right, I'm going to learn, I'm going to hustle, I'm going to, go do this or that. So find the time. If you got time to sleep, you're not working hard enough. No, I'm just kidding. You need to sleep. We're going back to health. One of the most important things. But seriously, there's no reason you can't sit down and use the bathroom and be, taking a shower. And while you're doing that, sit down and think about okay, here's my day plan. Here's how I'm going to do this. I'm going to get this done. Boom. You're out of the shower. You're going through this stuff all mentally. You get in the office and you just start checking things off your list right away. You come in, you're fired up and ready to go instead of sitting there and be like, oh, it's a bar of soap. I'm going to wash my arms now. I'm going to wash my ass. All right. That was fun. Ooh, man, I'm tired today. I'm going to drink coffee. See, you're wasting all that time right there. You could be doing something with your brain. Even if you're sitting there just meditating, that's doing something productive. I'm going to relax. I'm not going to think of anything. I'm just going to concentrate on my breathing. I'm going to take a shower. I'm going to enjoy it, live in the moment. You know what I mean? So just think about what you're doing, what you're trying to do, and what you want to get out of it and break it down. So I don't know. Maybe it's not for everybody. That's pretty machine-like, but Joey and I are weird dudes and we're kind of freaks of nature like that. We calculate every minute of what we do because we're weird. So don't be weird like us. All right, next question. Dear Joel, I'm almost 27 years old. I've been playing guitar since I was 14 and I was in a band since high school. By rural high school standards, our band was fairly successful. However, somehow it was wired into my brain that music is not something that you can do for a living. You have to go to college and get a job. Though college was always stuck in the back of my mind, and it wasn't until recently that I realized that if I didn't at least try, I'm going to be really deeply regretting it. To make a long story short, I recently have become obsessed with music production. It's the only thing I truly get excited about. However, I'm coming to this realization, which has caused me a lot of anxiety because I feel like I'm 10 years behind where I should be, and it causes me to obsess even more because I feel like I have to make up for lost time. I'm a couple years away from my 30s with a full-time job. Getting good at seems daunting, to say the least. All right, Ryan, here's the deal, my man. Anybody who says you can't do this for a living is full of shit, because if I can do it, and I'm a guy who came up from cornfields, okay? Literally, I had no mentors. I came from Hubertus, Wisconsin was my first studio. Look that one up on a map. And if you can find a city anywhere near it, I'll be impressed. So I built and broke a career from a basement, literally surrounded by cornfields in the middle of fucking nowhere, excuse my language, Wisconsin. And I'll tell you that if I can do that there, you can do it too, okay? Because your path may be different than mine. There's a lot of ways to make money and make a really good, solid living doing music, whether it's recording, even playing in a band. You have to be smart. I mean, guys, there are people on YouTube that make great livings. There are people that run businesses. There are people that make software. There's people that, play in a band. There's people that record and produce. There's people that just master. There's people that press discs. There's people that do PR. There's people that manage bands. There's a huge industry of people that make a living, and a really good one, doing this stuff. So anybody who says you can't obviously has hung out with my mom. They must be really good friends because, I don't know. Don't let the skeptic get you down. You got to be your own cheerleader. And I'm here to tell you from personal experience, because I did it when no one said that I could, and it was impossible, and I need to do this. I need to move to LA or Nashville. I need to blah, 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 do XYZ, get a real job, blah, 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 blah. You know what? They were all wrong, and I proved every single one of them wrong, and I enjoy every second of it. So you can too, and you will if you really want to do this, period. And I mean, you have to really want to do it. So, Ryan, I'm going to tell you, when it comes to lost time, don't feel bad. I didn't really start getting serious about producing and mixing and stuff until I was maybe I want to say around 27 years old. Okay, so I was already kind of recording, and, I quit my job and all that stuff, but it wasn't until probably I was about 27 years old that I maybe 28, that I got out of my band, and I said, okay, all I'm going to do is this. So if I started getting serious about it at 28 and made an awesome career, and I was able to finance 3 kids, daycare, which in America, for those of you who are foreign, costs $30,000 a year, plus all the extra taxes you have to pay when you own a business. It's expensive as hell. And I was able to finance all that, buy a ton of gear, like a Shadow Hills mastering compressor and a massive passive, and 6 figures worth of equipment. And I was able to do that just recording local bands out of a basement in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by cornfields. You can make a comfortable living and buy a house and all that shit and do well. If I can do it, you can do it. And not only me, but the guy across the hall, Eric, did it. Eric records still only local bands and things like that. And dude, he's making a great living. So not only does he LeBron it, he makes a nice paycheck too doing it. So you know what I'm saying? Guys, it's doable. I know so many dudes that are doing this stuff for a living in different ways, capacities, and yeah, some of them are making more money or whatever, but as long as you're making enough to live, and more importantly, you're doing something you love, that's it. So yeah, I know the feeling of feeling like you're a little bit behind, and you got to catch up, and it puts a lot of anxiety and pressure, but you know what? It's good, because that's you stress. That's turn that anxiety into something positive. You stay up for an extra 30 minutes, or get up an extra half hour, an hour earlier and study harder or mix more. You know what I mean? You can do it, man. It's out there. I'm telling you, you can do it. It's never too late. It also depends what your end goal is too, because I feel like some people are like, well, if I'm not working on really huge, majorly famous bands, I'm not successful. Well, that's also a load of horse shit. Success is really what you define it. And, as much as I like to say no small time, it's not about the level of achievement. It's about doing stuff that makes you happy, that is fulfilling to you, that you're saying, hey, I'm successful. I'll give you an example. My wife said to me once, she considers herself very successful. And I asked why. I mean, I agreed with her, obviously, but I asked why. And she said, well, I've got a job, I'm married, and I'm not divorced. I've got a few kids. Like, I've done really well. I'm proud. She was really proud of herself, what she had accomplished. And, to her, that was her definition of success. And, I think that's great. So, it doesn't matter how famous you get as a producer or how big or what bands you work on or how famous they are or how big the paycheck is or isn't. Or, the question is, are you doing it on your terms? Because let's take your worst case scenario. Okay. So say you have a full-time job. I'm sure you're not working 7 days a week. So, you're probably putting in 40 hours a week. If you could keep your full-time job and all that, and then maybe 10 hours a week, do recording and record bands or whatever and make a bunch of extra money. It's like you could probably make an extra 10 to 30 grand a year easily on the side doing that, which in a corporate job, that's like a major freaking raise. You just jump to an NBA. You know what I mean? Like, you don't just get raises like that. That's like, hey, I got a job and now I'm the supervisor. Before I was the clerk and now I'm the district manager. Like, that's a massive jump in responsibility. So, in 2 or 3 years of working hard and going out and getting clients, you could build a little side business. If you're working an extra 10 hours a week, dude, you could turn that into a lot of extra money. If that is your worst case scenario, even if you hate your job, that is not a terrible life, okay? Because you're getting to do at least some of what you want on your terms. You get to buy a bunch of cool gear, get the tax advantages, write it off, yada, 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 all the good stuff and all the benefits. So it's okay if that's your worst case scenario. That is not the worst thing to be in. The worst thing to be in is like living in a cardboard box in a third world country with no running water and like rampant disease and, like war and stuff like that. But you, if you're writing this to me right now, are not living that reality, it sounds like. So that is not the worst possible scenario. That's winning for a lot of people. So take it with grace. And that's your starting point. So if that's your starting point, you can only look upward from that. So, just enjoy it for what it is. I think that's what I think. Just enjoy it for what it is. See how far you can take it and enjoy it, because sometimes I'll say that when you get what you want, sometimes it's not really what you want. Like forever, I'm like, I want to work on sign bands. And I started working with sign bands and I'm like, the paycheck's a lot bigger, but it's harder to collect on. And it comes with a lot more stress and a lot more up and down. And, sometimes it's really stressful and it's really difficult. So, you know what I mean? Like there's a balance. I mean, when I was just doing local bands, hey man, they always paid on time. We had a lot of fun. Not all of them cared, which frustrated me. But at the same time, I learned to love it and have fun with them and realize that like, hey, these guys don't want to be big or whatever. They just want to come in and play music on the weekends and have fun and record some songs and have a good time. So I'm going to hang out with some dudes, make some music and have a great time doing it. And that's awesome. It's so much fun and it's super rewarding. And hey, you're also getting paid to do it. So, it's like going to the bar with some buddies and talking about music and getting paid for it. Like how the hell can you complain? So Ryan, don't stress yourself out, man. No need for anxiety. Turn that into eustress, turn it into something positive. I feel like your future and your outlook is pretty damn good. You're not late. You're just starting. Life is young. You're young. Life is just beginning. So be stoked, be optimistic. Everything is going to be awesome. All right, next question. Hey, Joel, Tom here. Love everything you guys are doing. My question, I find myself going through a lot of information because I'm in love with this stuff. I consider myself a beginner, although I've been watching, recording, and mixing stuff for years. Now, the problem is that whenever I start going through tutorials, I just seem to be going forever. And the more I watch and start going through new titles randomly. I'm an enhanced member. I have subscriptions to Group 3, Mac Pro Video to learn about Logic, and I don't get much work done. I feel like I need to watch and learn more, but I also need to start mixing more. How could I balance learning versus practicing? Do you incorporate daily schedules? All right, Tom. So here's my thoughts. I learned most of the stuff that I learned by doing it, okay? We didn't have things like Nail the Mix or URM Enhanced or any of this other cool stuff that's out there. We didn't have any of it. So I think it's most important maybe to do like either a 70-30 or a 60-40 ratio or maybe 80-20, whatever. But if you have 8 hours, spend 6 of them working or, 5 to 6 working and, 2 or 3 to learning, you know what I mean? Or work 8, make time to learn for an hour or 2 hours a day. You don't want to get overwhelmed and saturated. All that information is going to go up. You got to review it sometimes. You got to let some of it sink in and watch it a couple of times. It's like when I go through a bunch of power podcasts, when I'm powering through them, when I'm listening and shopping and things like that. What helps me is if I hear something really good, I'm like, man, that was a great podcast. I'll listen to it like 2 or 3 times over a couple of days because then it gets stuck in my long-term memory. And the key to getting something into long-term memory is you have to do it every day for like 4 days approximately. So I hear and read. And from experience, I also agree with. So just do something kind of like every day and review some information. So I understand the feeling like you got to know everything. You do. There's so much information. But regardless of whether you're practicing versus learning, the more importantly is time you are growing. So everything you do, you're getting better. And that's the critical key component to all this. You got to get some hands-on time, but you also got to get some theoretical time. You just want to balance it. So at worst case scenario, I would split it half and half, but I feel like it's better to be doing and learning slightly less, if that makes sense. So, because again, it's not how much you're watching and learning. It's more important to sit down and learn a concept and go through it a few times and really absorb it, then put it into practice. Like I would go when I used to work at a bank and I would read gear sluts. I'd read about something cool. After sifting through it for 8 hours, I'd write down like 3 or 4 things. I'd go home and I'd try them. And some of them I was like, this is really cool. Some of them were like, this is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Why would you do that? So you know what I mean? Like you got to go through and you got to have those moments because you may, for example, watch a mixed rescue and see how I approach a snare drum and say, dude, that doesn't work for me. Like, I don't get it. This dude's crazy. Like, this is the dumbest way to approach a snare drum. You should do it like this. So there's no right way. What's important is you are developing your own style, your own method of solving problems. That's the thing. I always say this. We're not teaching presets. We're teaching concepts and most importantly, problem solving. This is about getting better at solving problems because if you can slay one mix, that doesn't mean you can slay 30 more, because 30 more mixes are 30 more problems. And each song has its own set of challenges. So it's very important to sit down and take each song and look at it and say, okay, I got to solve X, Y, and Z. Now I got to do A, B, C in this song. So, it's not one size fits all. And it takes time to develop. Like if you've seen Billy Decker's Nail the Mix, to get to a level where you can have a template that it can take that level of stuff thrown at it and still stand up and be robust is pretty damn impressive. It takes many, many years of refining to get something that works 80% of the time. So you got to practice as well as learn. So I definitely would weigh a little bit more of the actual practice as opposed to learning. So it's important to do both, man. Just keep absorbing it. You're going to get it. Don't stress out. Okay, next question. Dear Dark Lord of No Small Time and Epic Rants, I've been listening to the podcast for a little bit now, and I've become a big fan. Thanks for sharing your knowledge with us. No, thank you so much for listening, Jack. You are awesome, and I appreciate every single one of you guys and gals that are listening to the podcast. I like you guys and girls. You're all awesome. Thank you so much. Love being here and doing what we're doing, and the fact that you're all getting something out of this it's pretty cool. Like we really appreciate that you listen to us idiots talk. So Jack is asking, I've been producing metal for a while and I feel like my biggest weakness is 600 to 800 on rhythm guitars. Man, that's a really hard spot to get right. That I'm just going to go off the record and say that here for a second. But I aim for clarity in my technical rhythm guitar tracks because I feel like if I EQ the boxiness out of 600 to 800, I lose a lot of clarity and it becomes primarily 2K and a lot of 120. I've tried using different tones and I'm just not feeling it on any tone. So my question, how do you go about achieving a clear metal rhythm guitar sound that also has a huge and unboxy when you make those mid-range cuts? And what do you do to listen to determine how much gain to slice? Jack. Okay. This is, when it comes to guitar, is not only a question, but one of the questions you have to solve. And it's very hard to talk about it on a podcast and give you the best advice. It's much easier to show you. But regardless, the format right now is audio and it's a podcast. So I would say a good rule of thumb when you're pulling out any range on guitars, any type of boxiness or honkiness or whatever, like 500, 800, 1K, make the cut if you feel it needs the cut. And then when you feel like you've gone too far, back up a bit. And then right at that spot, if you're finding yourself overdoing it, because again, it could be your listening environment too, back up a little bit more to where it starts sounding a little bit uncomfortable again. But when you if you bypass that EQ point, what's going to happen is it's going to hit you and you're going to be like, dude, it sounds way wrong. And you're going to put the EQ back in and you're going to be like, oh, that sounds a lot better. And then your ear will automatically be adapted to the new change in the mid-range. So just undercompensate a little bit if that helps with EQing. So get it down to where you're like, that sounds great, but now I feel like I'm suffering in these other areas. And then bring it back just a little bit till it starts getting uncomfortable. Bypass it, unbypass it, and then just move on. And you can always go back and adjust those cuts. If you get into it later and you're like, hey, I feel like I've tightened up the guitar, but I just pulled too much out. So then, go back to that guitar and just, minus 0.5 dB or, reduce the gain by a dB or something like that. Just ease up on it a little bit on the mix when you're listening to it. And if it helps add more clarity and more glue and gel, keep it. If it doesn't, well, maybe it's not that area. Maybe you have to look somewhere else. So I can see what you mean about 2K. Guitars are a pain in the ass because basically like everything from 120 to, you filter everything sometimes like 80 to 120. And then you have like that whole like 120 to like 4,000 area that's just like gone. And then you got like the really high stuff you filter out and what's left, nothing. So it's really frustrating. Like every frequency in guitar kind of sucks. So maybe I would say also if you're struggling in that range, maybe try bumping it up. Like maybe if your Q is at say 700, or sorry, your frequency, move the band up to like 800 or 900 and do the cut there and see if it cleans up some of the mid-range because maybe you're hearing 1K. Like I said, it could be monitoring or just training your ear. Try moving it up to a little bit of a higher frequency, doing the same cut that you did there. And again, just bypass it and then put it back in so your ear is like, okay, and see how that feels in the mix. So you got to experiment with it. There's no precise method to say, cut this much out here, do this, slide this. You know what I mean? It's a lot of trial and error. It's a lot of frustration. All I'm going to say to you, Jack, is this. Do you think for 1 second, the dudes that are the best in the world at this stuff, that rip the sickest, most metal, awesome guitar tones, have done anything less than developed or spent years, and I mean years of long work, study, and effort trying to achieve amazing tones? Like they train that stuff for 1, 2, who knows, maybe even 3 decades. It just depends on the person. So they didn't get there by accident is what I'm saying. They got there through hard work. So it's frustrating, but if it's frustrating you, dude, and you're working at it, you're progressing. And if you're progressing, you are improving. And that is the most important thing, because over time, that aggregated out, you are going to get better and you are definitely growing. It may not feel like it. You may feel frustrated, dude. Just keep going and keep banging it out. That is the key, in my opinion. So I think it's time to wrap it up. Thank you guys so much for hanging out and listening. If you want to submit questions to a future episode of Dear Joel, it is joel@urm.academy. That's joel@urm.academy. I am Joel Wanasek. You are listening to the Unstoppable Recording Machine podcast. Thank you guys so much for listening. Head over to unstoppablemerch.com and get some really hot, no small time stuff. But aside from that, podcast theme, go.
The Unstoppable Recording Machine podcast is brought to you by Balaguer Guitars. Founded in 2014, Balaguer Guitars strives to bring modern aesthetics and options to vintage-inspired designs. Go to BalaguerGuitars.com for more info. This episode of the podcast is also brought to you by Fishman, Inspired Performance Technology. Fishman is dedicated to helping musicians of all styles achieve the truest sound possible wherever and whenever they plug in. Go to Fishman.com for more info. To ask us questions, make suggestions, and interact, visit nailthemix.com/podcast and subscribe today.